Hello, this is going to be a video tutorial on how to scrape tweets from Twitter using the requests package in Python. I'm making this because on the internet, a lot of times when you look up how you're supposed to scrape information from the internet, people will tell you to use something like Selenium and like create a browser. And while that would work, I just think that this is much easier and it's much less resource intensive. And I feel like it's important it's a useful skill to have. So I want you to come out of this video not only knowing how to scrape tweets from Twitter specifically, but also just how to use the request package to scrape from the internet. Let's get started. Oh, and you don't have to know a whole lot about HTTP requests in order to do this. It would help, but you do need to know how to use Python. So from the request package, I'm going to import post and get. Those are the two kinds of requests we're going to use today. And I'm going to start by walking you through my process on how I did this. So open up a new private browser, go to the developer tools and the network tab. I'm already on it. And let's go to where we want to scrape information from. So I'm going to go from twitter.com/search. Oh, that's interesting. Did I type it wrong? Oh, weird. They changed it from yesterday. I filmed this 3 times yesterday, and each time there was a weird, different technical problem. So hopefully this time there isn't one. But they've changed the thing or whatever. So if you didn't know this about Twitter, you can use the from word to search for tweets from one particular user. So I'm gonna go for Kanye West. And the goal is to scrape the content of the tweets, like this stuff right here, the caption or whatever. So I'm gonna refresh this. The first thing I would do is I would go through the requests. Probably you're going to be looking for HTML or JSON for information that's like displayed on a screen. And I'm just going to go look at the responses of each of these and scroll through them until I find one that contains the tweets. And that would be right here. So if we go into this adaptive.json request, the response is a JSON file in global objects tweets. Here's a list of all the tweets that are displayed on the page. If we open them up, we see all the information about the tweet, including what we're looking for, the full text. This is what we're trying to scrape. So let's start by mimicking this request in Python. So I'm going to set up some dictionaries. You have to excuse my slow typing. My keyboard is like really far to the left of my desk. And I hope you can't hear my dog barking right now, so that I can fit my school laptop on the right side of my desk so I can see my code. Okay, now we've got the parameters and headers dictionary set up. I'll explain what we put in those in just a moment. I'm gonna say tweet data equals. Oh, we already have requests. Get, and then the first parameter there is the URL that we're getting the information from. Oh, actually, the first thing. Notice the method you're using, the type of request. We got this information from a GET request, so we're doing a GET request from the request package. And we grab the URL, copy it, paste that here, and we'll set headers to our headers dictionary, and same for params. Okay, so what goes in params and headers is this information up here. If we drop this down, all of these are the parameters, and down here on request headers, all of these are the headers. And so what I'm gonna do is copy these into Python. So I'll be back after I finish doing that. Okay, I've copied all the headers and parameters from the request, and if we go ahead and print the response we get, it'll give us the code. So let's see. We get 200. So 200 is okay. That means our request was received and everything went well. Now, since we know we're getting a, we know our response is a JSON document, so let's convert to JSON. And if we print this, it will not go well because we are accepting encoding. So the accept encoding header basically is like the browser telling Twitter, like, okay, you can send it encoded in gzip, deflate, or br. and then Twitter will pick whichever one it wants and send the information to you. I'm pretty sure in this case Twitter's using BR, which is the broadly like compression. And the way to fix this is you could change the accept encoding to identity, which is basically the same thing as just not doing any kind of encoding. And there we go. So we've got our whole JSON document, or, you know, just removing this. That should also work. And it does. Okay. The next thing I would do is I would start commenting out chunks of headers and parameters and get these down to the bare minimum of what you need. So what I mean is, like, you know, like go here and comment out a bunch of them, see if it works. It does, so you can delete these. And I'll save you the trouble. In this case, I already know which ones that we need because I've done this before. We need the XGuest token and the authorization header. Those are the only headers we need. And then for parameters, we need query source typed query. We need this Q parameter, which is basically the same thing as, like, this is what goes in the search bar. We need tweet mode extended. We need no, I think that's all. Let's give this a shot. And yeah, we've got all our information here. Let's start going through our tweet data and looking for the information we want. So if we remember, it's in global objects and then tweets, and then inside of tweets is a list. So we're going to loop through this list, and for each item in the list, we're going to get the full text. So I'll start by making I'm going to start by making a username variable just to make this a little bit more like adaptable. And I'm going to change this Kanye West part into our username variable so we can make whatever we want. Then I'm going to make a tweets list where we can store our tweets, and we're going to start appending to it. So I'm going to say for tweet in tweet data global object tweets. So we're looping through all of these. All of these. We're going to say tweets.append tweet data global object actually, I think we can do this just like this. We can just do tweet full text. That should work, actually. So let me test this out. So I'm going to say, I'm going to print every tweet in the list. And then after that, I'm going to do 2 more prints. I'm going to print the number of tweets that we scraped. And then I'm also going to print the number of unique tweets. Because it's important to know that we're not repeating any tweets. And I'll do this by taking the length of the set of tweets. Converting the tweets list into a set removes all duplicate items. So if we do this, no, okay, yeah, I did have it right the first time. So we're going to do tweet data global object tweets, and then we're going to go to our tweet that we are looping through and then get the full text. And so, yeah, that's how we'll get the text of the tweets. And there we go. We've got 20 unique tweets from Kanye West right here. Now we're going to get into this slightly more difficult part, which is, before I do that, if this program ever randomly stops working for you, it's probably because this has expired. You'll want to refresh Twitter and go grab a new XGuest token because these do expire periodically. And later in the video, I'll introduce a way to get one of these without having to like go type it in yourself. But for now, let's handle the scrolling. So, if you don't know, when you search on Twitter, it has an infinite. I'm actually gonna filter this. I'm gonna filter this for adaptive, because we know that's where the tweet information comes from. So Twitter does infinite scrolling, which makes this kind of complicated, but I'll walk you through it. So if we scroll down some more, we should get another adaptive.json eventually. There we go. So this is the second round of tweets loaded. And, you know, we can go through and see all of them just like before. So what we want to do now is analyze our request and look for what is different between this request and this one that makes it so that Twitter knows we've scrolled down. And what the difference is this. The value of the cursor parameter. So this value is showing Twitter that we're scrolling down, and it's pretty much gibberish. But we know that we had to have been sent this data sometime before, because our browser is sending it to Twitter to scroll down. So like our browser already knows this. So what you would then do is you would go back through all the requests and find the place where you get this value. I'll spare you the time. It's actually in the previous adaptive.json in timeline, instructions, 0, add entries, entries. It's at the very bottom one, SQ cursor bottom, content, operation, cursor, value. This is where the value is stored. That means, okay, scroll down one more time. It's actually not all the time, though. It's a little bit more complicated than that. So let's scroll down one more time. And as you might predict, we've got a different value for cursor here. And so the value for this cursor is found in the previous adaptive.json, but in a slightly different location. So we go timeline, instructions, and then we look for the replace entry object with entry ID to replace equal to SQ cursor bottom. So this one is SQ cursor top, and this one's an add entry, so neither of these, it's this one. And we go replace entry, entry, content, operation, cursor, value. And this process for this second one right here is the same for every single other one. It's just this first one that's unique. So we're gonna have to account for that in our code. So let's get started. Let's start doing this. So first, I'm gonna do 2 more variables: num tweets for number of tweets to scrape, and what was it? Oh yeah, first scroll. I'm gonna set that to true, and that's basically gonna tell us if we're on the first scroll or not, so we can look at the location we need to look at. I'm gonna wrap this in a while loop while the length of tweets is less than num tweets. So, you know, until we've got num tweets, we're gonna keep repeating this process. We're gonna keep getting new requests. And in our parameter dictionary, I'm going to include the cursor parameter, but set it to none because it's none for the first request. There's no cursor value. And then we will change this as we go on to simulate scrolling down. So first, we're going to say if first scroll. So if we're on the first scroll, we're going to look in the location of the first one. So timeline, then instructions, then 0, then add entries, then entries. And we're going to loop through this until we find the one where entry ID is SQ cursor bottom. That was kind of a mouthful. I'll show you what it looks like in code. Okay, so if first scroll, we're going to say entries equals tweet data, timeline, instructions, 0, add entries, and then entries. Yeah. So this is the list. This entries variable right here is basically all of these things is what we're getting at. We're going to say for entry in entries, if entry, and then we're going to check for the entry ID, maybe? Yeah, entry ID. We're going to check and see if that's SQ cursor bottom. And if it is, we're going to set the value of cursor in our params dictionary to entry, and then we're going to go down this again. So this is the entry right here that we're at. Then we're going to go content operation cursor value to find the value that we need. So content operation cursor value. All right, I'm pretty sure that all that is good. So now we have a way to get the first scroll down, and we need to make a way for all the rest of them. So we'll do an else. So if we're not on the first scroll, then we will look in the, I just pasted a bunch of stuff into the terminal. Okay. We're going to look at this one to find out where to go. So we're gonna go timeline, then instructions, and we're gonna loop through these until we find the one where entry ID to replace is SQ cursor bottom. So I'm gonna say for object in tweet data, timeline, instructions, is that correct? Timeline, instructions, yeah. If replace entry in object, and the reason we're checking for if replace entry is in object is because we want to make sure that we're not like we're looking for entry ID to replace, and this one doesn't have that. And if we tried to check for it on this one, it would throw an error. So we want to make sure we're not even looking at add entries. We're just looking at these two. And then we check and see, you know, if object of replace entry ID to replace equals SQ cursor bottom. Let me check and make sure that's correct. Object replace entry ID to replace. Yeah, okay. So if we're on this SQ cursor bottom one, then we're going to go down that thing again where we go entry content operation cursor value. So we'll say cursor params, params cursor equals object replace entry, I think, right? Yeah. Content operation cursor value. And see, I'll show you one more time. We're just going down this kind of like tree. We're going down this branch in the JSON document to find this value so that we can scroll down the next time. So I'm gonna run this. Let's see if it works. Hopefully I haven't made any errors. And oh, I have. Okay, so since 40 tweets are grabbed, that means that the first scroll is working correctly, but the second one is not because it gets 20 per scroll. So I've done something wrong here. Oh, oh my gosh. We have to, if after the first scroll, we change first scroll to be false. That's probably the issue. So now, let's give it another shot. Weird, okay, so it's just hanging now. So let me go ahead and diagnose this. Oh, there it is. I forgot one more parameter that we actually do need, and that is tweet search mode, and we set that to live. So yeah, you may want to actually refrain from like seeing what headers and parameters you need until your program is fully functioning, so that you can avoid weird problems like that. But yeah, I believe the problem is something like without tweet mode live, when you scroll down, it hits a bottom here, and it just which made it not work. But you know, when tweet mode live, which I believe means like you're on the latest tweets, it keeps scrolling forever. So yeah, tweet search mode live. Let's run that again. See if we get 100 unique tweets. And we do. So here's 100 unique tweets from Kanye West. And so we have a working tweet scraper. And one more thing though. Back to this xguest token. Let's kind of repeat the process we just did, but find the xguest token. So let's start by open up a new private browser, like a whole new one. Same thing, go to the developer tools, network, twitter.com/search. And now we're going to search through these requests until we find the one that gives us our guest token. So we go through, it's not that one, it's not that one. And it's this one. So we're going to do the same thing we did earlier, but we're going to mimic this request now. So this one, here's the URL. It's a post request. And there are no parameters. So let's just go ahead and copy this. I'll do this up here. I'm going to say token response equals post, because it's a post request there. And then normally you would do the same thing you did earlier, where you copy the entire parameters and headers and you test them out. But I already know that the only thing I need here is the authorization header, so I'm not gonna bother with all that. To authorization, and it's actually just the same thing. So we set authorization to this. Oops. And now let's go ahead and print the token response. See what it does. Oh, oops. .json. Try again. Okay, yeah, there we go. It grabbed the guest token. Scroll back up to it. Right there. So we're gonna say guest token equals token response. We're gonna find the guest token value. And we're just gonna set that to this. So now each time we run the program, it gets a new guest token so that we don't have to worry about it expiring. So now if we run this, let's try with a different account. Let's do Chris Evans, do the past 350 tweets, and see how it does. And there we go. We got 368 unique tweets from Chris Evans. And yeah, there you go. There's a Twitter scraping program. It's pretty fast. It's much faster than Selenium. And hopefully you know how to use this well enough now that you can apply this to other situations. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.